Hello, and thank you for joining me. This is the Truth About Living podcast, and I'm your host, Bridgett. Hello. Thank you for being here on A Course in Miracles Wednesday. And if spirituality, aligning with your purpose, and business is your thing, then I want to invite you to please check out our new masterclass offering. Beginning in May 2017, I'm going to be accepting a maximum of 6 people into this unique offering. It is all about spirituality and business and connecting the two. It's a 10-week class. It's highly personalized. We meet online each week. And there is an application process. You can find the link for the application here in the iTunes description box, or you can visit me over at thetruthaboutliving.com, click visit the site, and it's under the coaching tab, Spirituality and Business Masterclass. Thank you again for being here. You know that I love diving into A Course in Miracles as a student. And so my goal with these Wednesday episodes is really to provide a window into what it's like to go through this process of practicing, learning, studying A Course in Miracles. This may be a text. Some of you have written to me and said that you did this course years ago and you're diving back into it now. This may be something you're considering doing. If you're new to the podcast, I would invite you to please go back and check out the intro episode to A Course in Miracles, just so you can see, what it's all about and if it's right for you. This is a year-long project for me, as there is a lesson a day, and there's 365 lessons. So it is quite an endeavor and worth every single bit of it. Last week I talked about how the ego can mislead us sometimes into thinking we know what's best for us, but we don't always know what is for our highest good. So it's a matter of aligning with your faith and trust and your overall vision and not getting caught up in the specific details of what you think is going to make you happy. And so there's a letting go process to that, right? And I absolutely love that. That was a big lesson for me. Today, I am going to be hovering around Lesson 30. If you happen to be following along in your text, Lesson 30, and even backtracking a little bit to Lessons 28 and 29, because they're all connected. And one of the things I love about A Course in Miracles is that it builds so gently and so gradually. And I think that's why it takes so long to get through the text. It's not a book you just sit down and read, right? It's something that you have to absorb. And the graduation of the new beliefs are so slight that one day, for example, in Lesson 28, even Lesson 27, it says, above all else, I want to see. And even though there is a full page describing what that means, you don't exactly fully understand what that means, but you will as it builds. So Lesson 27, above all else, I want to see. Lesson 28, above all else, I want to see things differently. 29, God is in everything I see. And 30, God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. So you're really spending a full day, sometimes 2 days, on just one of these statements. And I want to go into detail a little bit about Lesson 28 and 29, about wanting to see things differently. Now we know that one of the teachings in A Course in Miracles is about having vision, right? Vision above all else was one of the statements from one of the lessons, wanting to have vision above all else. And vision can mean a lot of things, but I think the way I interpret it in this text is that it's always about the same thing. It's always about getting back to that knowledge of truth and love, right? So that's how we want to see things ideally, and not have our projections or what we perceive or what we think imposed over top of what God created, which is only love, right? So there's a shift in thinking there, and it's outside of how we normally think, for sure, right? So one of the things I wanted to do was to read a little bit to you for lesson 29, because the words in lesson 29, I think, can describe this better than I can, and can help to provide a little bit of clarity on where we're going with this and why it's important. Lesson 29, God is in everything I see. The idea for today explains why you can see all purpose in everything. It explains why nothing is separate by itself or in itself. And it explains why nothing you see means anything. In fact, it explains every idea we have used thus far, and all subsequent ones as well. Today's idea is the whole basis for vision. Remember, the lesson is God is in everything I see. Continuing to read. You will probably find this idea very difficult to grasp at this point. You may find it silly, irreverent, senseless, funny, and even objectionable. Certainly, God is not in a table, for example, as you see it. Yet we emphasized yesterday that a table shares the purpose of the universe. And what shares the purpose of the universe shares the purpose of its creator. Try then today to begin to learn how to look on all things with love, appreciation, and open-mindedness. You do not see them now. Would you know what is in them? Nothing is as it appears to you. Its holy purpose stands beyond your little range. When vision has shown you the holiness that lights up the world, you will understand today's idea perfectly, and you will not understand how you could ever have found it difficult. Again, the lesson is God is in everything I see. And so what you're supposed to do for the practice portion of this lesson is you're supposed to, find things in your world that, basic things, mundane things, objects, and say, God is in this, right? So you say, God is in this coat hanger. God is in this magazine. God is in this finger. God is in this lamp. God is in that body. God is in that door. And it's just this continual process, and you're supposed to do it throughout the day. And they say that you should experience a sense of restfulness as you do this. Now, as you're doing this, you're putting your faith and trust in this work, because this may be a little bit difficult to understand, right? God is in everything. Now, if you come from a background of, I love this may be going down a rabbit hole here. I'm just going to touch on it very briefly. I love learning about energy. I love learning about quantum physics. I love the discoveries that are being made right now about how energy truly works. And so we know that from science, like if you were to actually examine a table down to its most basic level, it's mostly space, right? That the atoms that make up our matter, they're in constant motion. And when you get down to the most finite of levels, there is only probability, possibility, space, and a few particles. I mean, it makes you really wonder, what is this world? What is this reality? And so for me, coming from that kind of framework where I love digging into those topics, and I think God is in everything I see, well, of course, God can be in the table because, God is love and energy, and it's all connected. I don't understand it all yet, but I can believe that. But I think with A Course in Miracles, I don't think they're going down the path of quantum physics. I don't think they're going that way. The lesson for the next day starts to show you why you can believe that God is in everything. And it says, God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. And so now we're coming to a place where maybe we can begin to see where they're leading us with this, right? So if God is in your mind, then it would actually go out and color, imbue everything that you see, everything you encounter with God. Now, what is God? Well, that's that's a deep question right there. What is God? From the framework of A Course in Miracles, my understanding is God is love. God is truth. God is knowledge. God is all there is. Different names, different words, referring to one thing in particular. If you have that in your mind, if you come from that position of God is in your mind, then God is in everything you see. And yeah, right now they are talking about tables, and your finger, right? Really basic, tangible stuff. But you can very easily extend that. When you're driving down the street and you pass, let's say, a homeless person, you may have preconceived notions about that person's life. You may have judgments. You may have sympathy. You may come from a variety of perspectives about seeing that person. What would it mean if you could see that person and know God is in everything that you see? Because God is in your mind. Doesn't that make it easier to bless others, even in light of reserving judgment? What about family members that are difficult? What about people you have conflicts with? What does that do in your perception of them if you can say, God is in everything I see because God is in my mind? Does it get easier to bless others? And you can extend this to anything, right? So this is part of what I teach in the gratitude course, because it's about imbuing everything with love and appreciation, the emotional states, the blissful states, the beautiful states of living that we want to be in. And you can extend this into your projects, your work, your health, your vitality. God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. And if that's not a beautiful state to live in, I don't know what is. Typically on one of these podcast episodes, I'll just go into one lesson, but they're so tied together. It's hard to just take one lesson in isolation because they build on each other so much. Just a week ago, one of the lessons was I want to see things differently. And that sounds like a really simple lesson, and you're not even sure what that means when you're reading it. I want to see things differently. Okay. That is leading you towards something positive and good. And it builds and it builds and it builds. And it's about seeing with vision. It's about seeing with God in your mind. And so the next lessons I haven't even looked at yet, right? Because I like to I like to save them and come into them fresh, right? I don't like to look ahead. So it keeps my mind curious. Where is this leading? If I can take this message to heart, if I can acknowledge that up to lesson 30, it has shaped my life in powerful and meaningful and beautiful ways, then I can get genuinely excited about what's to come. This is just the very beginning, the very, very beginning. 365 lessons, so, got a ways to go. I do take it a bit slower on the podcast, only because if I this is a weekly podcast, and if I just did one lesson a week, I would be missing so much material. So I am taking it a bit slower as I go through and discuss the topics and the lessons. And I don't always do a lesson, right? Sometimes I go into the student text and read from there. I just think it's fascinating. I think it's interesting. And I would encourage you that in whatever way nourishes your spirit and your spiritual growth, to dedicate time to it, right? And so I do thank you for being here today. I'm always so grateful for your presence here on the podcast, for exploring these topics with me about the nature of our world, about how to live our best lives in every way, how to truly, truly love your life. And so I love facilitating these beautiful states, these beautiful emotional states, and sharing that with you, and we share that with others, everyone we encounter, right? Please do find me over on the blog, thetruthaboutliving.com, and I've included a few links in the iTunes description so you can connect with me personally through Facebook, through the masterclass offering. Thank you for your support. Very, very much appreciate it. And go out and have a beautiful day. And I'm going to say goodbye for now.